let me know when
You
I
can
start.
stand up there, but poor Destiny, he's not going to be able to see anything. Okay, Destiny, come over here a second. You're going to sit in your mom's chair. How about that?
Okay.
Okay.
So let me know whenever I'm ready to start.
The microphone is right, and we are good to go.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Destiny Armstead. Welcome to 1561. I live here with my son, Destin, and we've been living here since December 27th. And I love it here. It's so beautiful. My son loves it. And it's like a dream come true for me. And I mean, before that dream became true for me, I mean, I had a hardship trying to find somewhere to stay for the past 2 years. Somewhere, I was looking for something that's, decent, somewhere safe, somewhere that's affordable for me. Even though I'm a working mom, I work every single day, it seemed like it was impossible for me to find something within my price range. But thanks to Mayor Bill de Blasio, I love him so much for, reaching out to people like me, because I was looking online out of coincidence. I just looked online and I seen that he was, doing something for affordable housing. And, that gave me the confidence to put out applications for these affordable housing, which is 1561. And luckily, and thank God, I got accepted. And I love it so much. The first day I moved in, me and my son was overwhelmed with joy. And we just loved it. Couldn't even sleep the first night we moved in because everything was so brand new and beautiful. And it was like, it's in our neighborhood. I'm so familiar with the Bronx, and I am just here to stay. Like, I'm not going nowhere. I love my neighborhood. And now I would like to introduce the mayor, Bill de Blasio.
Thank you. You did a great
my
job.
friend. Thank you.
Well done.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Destiny. And I am so happy for you and for Destin. Is he going to share the chair, or you can have my chair? No. Destin, you want my chair, or you want that chair? Okay. Destin clearly has a mind of his own, as we learned upstairs. For any of you who are on Destin's guided tour of the apartment, he is a very impressive young man. And Destiny, thank you. You have a lot to be proud of in that young man, but you have a lot to be proud of also that you persevered. You're like so many New Yorkers who are working so hard, just trying to make ends meet, and need to know that they'll be able to live in this city, and who care deeply for their neighborhood and their borough, and just want to be a part of it. And I really appreciate what you said. And, our job is to find a way to help so many hardworking people who have been struggling just the way you've been struggling. But I want to thank you because you're providing an example today that it can happen. People can get the help they need. So congratulations, Destiny. Want to thank so many people here who have been a part of what we're going to talk about today. A lot of great people from the city government. I want to thank in particular everyone from HPD who did such hard work to get us to this achievement and so many others like it. Particular thanks to Commissioner Maria Torres Springer for her extraordinary leadership. A lot has happened in our affordable housing program. You're going to hear from Deputy Mayor Glenn in a moment, but I really want to emphasize that the team at HPD has done an amazing job, and they've set a new record that we're going to talk about in a moment. So congratulations to you and your team. Also, this site has a lot of powerful history because going way back to the Koch years, this was a site that was important in terms of that extraordinary affordable housing effort. And those buildings are still here. We're adding now we've added this new building. But the folks at New Settlement have been a part for decades of fighting to protect this neighborhood and people in it in the toughest of times, and making sure there was affordable housing. And we're They're partners in keeping the older affordable housing in good shape and building new affordable housing. So I want to thank our hosts here at the building, Jack Doyle, the Executive Director of New Settlement Apartments, and Alexa Sewell, the Executive Director of Settlement Housing Fund. Let's thank them both. So this gets back to the essential question that has been the essence of this administration. How do we make this a fairer city? We want to be the fairest big city in America. What does that mean? Well, it means that people who work hard and are trying their best to provide for their family can actually get housing they can afford, and that it's good and decent housing. That's when you know you're living in a situation of fairness. It rewards the folks who've done the hard work and have stuck with their community, and it reminds us that we're all stakeholders. We all belong. We're all part of this. Not just a small privileged group are rewarded, but everyone has a chance to get rewarded for their hard work. That is the entire idea behind this. Here's the reality that I felt back in 2013, and I still see it in so many ways. People were filled with anxiety and fear of displacement. And you heard it in Destiny's story, what it was like for her before she got this apartment, that sense of, will I be here in another year? Will I be able to afford to live here? That anxiety was at a fever pitch already back in 2013, and that inspired us to create the biggest affordable housing program in the history of New York City. The anxiety is still out there. We've got a lot more people to reach. And I want to emphasize that. I meet every single day New Yorkers who fear for their ability to stay here. And they need hope. And part of why we are here today, and we're telling Destiny's story, is to remind people that there is real hope. There's a tangible hope that you can get the kind of affordable housing you deserve. It does take time. It won't happen overnight. This will be a long effort. But for more and more New Yorkers, this affordable housing is becoming a part of their lives. For more and more New Yorkers, their dreams are being answered. So we're in this for the long haul. We've got a lot to do. But today we celebrate the fact that there really is some progress. I remind everyone that if we don't get this right, if we don't create more and more and more affordable housing, if we don't protect the affordable housing we have aggressively, it will not be the same New York City anymore. New York City was always meant to be a place for everyone. It's deep, deep in our history and our values, and why we are great is we're a place for everyone. We cannot let that slip away. When New York City is no longer a place for everyone, it will cease to be the greatest city in the world. So our job is to protect that extraordinary legacy, constantly build new affordable housing, preserve the affordable housing we have, fight back when, in the interest of greed, landlords take away from hardworking New Yorkers the housing they have a legal right to. We're going to talk about today another way that we're going to join that fight. But let's go over the big picture first. The most ambitious affordable housing program in our history. When we announced it, it was a plan for 200,000 apartments by 2024. We decided we could go farther, and we are on target to create and preserve 300,000 affordable apartments by 2026. That's enough for 750,000 New Yorkers to stay in the city they love. Does that sound good to you? All right. Now, you will not be surprised to know that many doubted this plan could be achieved. We had a lot of critique in the beginning, questioning whether the numbers were realistic, whether we could actually get there. Well, we're here today to say, yes, this plan is on target. This plan will be achieved. And that 750,000 of our fellow New Yorkers will benefit and will know that they have affordable housing for the long haul for decades and decades to come. Here's the fact and the achievement that we're here to formally announce. In the last fiscal year, ended just on June 30, this city financed more affordable housing than in any fiscal year in the history of New York City. 32,000 apartments in fiscal year 18. 32,000. $9,000 of those will be newly built. 23,000 will be preserved, meaning the folks who are living in them will get to stay in their apartment and have it subsidized and supported for the long term. That now brings us to a grand total of, I think it's really, really impressive where we are now. 110,000 apartments have now been financed. And what does it mean? I want to tell you about the folks who are already in this affordable housing, just like Destiny and Destin are. We've gotten over 60,000 apartments built or fully preserved in the last 4 years or so, which means 150,000 New Yorkers are in those apartments right now. So from the moment we announced this plan, May of 2014, so almost exactly 4 years ago, 150,000 New Yorkers are in the affordable housing that was created or preserved under the plan. This moved fast, and it's having a huge, tangible impact on people's lives. Now, look, we understand, as I mentioned, we're still in an affordability crisis. We're going to face it for a long time. We're going to have to fight it with every tool we have. We're going to have to be creative. We're going to have to be innovative. We have to use every tool we have, and when we find that's not enough, we have to invent new tools to fight for working people, to make sure they have a place to live. So before we did things that were new and important, rent freeze had never been done previously. It was the right thing to do. Free lawyers to make sure people could fight illegal evictions, and the city council played such a crucial role with the right to counsel law. Mandatory inclusionary housing. We became the city that had the biggest and most progressive effort to ensure that developers had to create affordable housing when they needed the city's approval to build. And again, thanks to the council for their extraordinary efforts on MIH. Today, we're going to announce another important tool to use on behalf of tenants to fight for their rights. We're announcing the creation of the Tenant Anti-Harassment Protection Unit at HPD. Now, I want to tell you what this means. It means if there's a bad landlord out there who thinks they can get over on their tenants and get over on the city of New York, they are sorely mistaken, because we are beefing up enforcement further. We will be inspecting more buildings than ever before, and we will be taking landlords to court directly if they violate the rights of their tenants. We had a very important effort that we put together with the state to bring criminal charges against some of the worst landlords for some of the worst abuses. But that's a time-consuming effort. While that continues, we want to do something more and bigger. So this initiative will allow us to bring civil charges against landlords who harass their tenants and try and force them out. These will mean very serious penalties for those landlords, tens of thousands of dollars to start if they have done the wrong thing, easily going up to hundreds of thousands of dollars in penalties. So this is an approach with real teeth. And it means that the word will quickly spread. Now, I always say most landlords do the right thing and follow the law, but there's an unscrupulous few who do a huge amount of damage. They hurt New York families, and then they also take housing that had been affordable for a long time, and they take it off the market by forcing people out. This message will spread to those bad landlords that there's a lot more enforcement coming, and they're going to pay the price if they dare to harass their tenants. So this is about making sure that our city becomes fairer every day. And this new unit is going to be in the vanguard of fighting for tenants who really deserve a break in this town. Just a few words in Spanish. Cuando asumimos el cargo, demasiados neoyorquinos viven con miedo a perder sus hogares. por lo que lanzamos el plan de vivienda asequible más grande de la historia. Me enorgullece anunciar que el año pasado financiamos más apartamentos asequibles que cualquier año anterior. Y estamos creando un nuevo equipo para proteger a los inquilinos y monitorear a los propietarios, inspeccionando los edificios y llevando a los tribunales a los propietarios que violen la ley. This is a new approach that's really going to make a difference. And now it's my pleasure to bring forward our deputy mayor, who's been leading the charge. She started out her career, one of her earliest jobs was as a legal aid lawyer, so she knows plenty about what it takes to fight for our tenants. Our deputy mayor, Alicia Glenn.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Destiny, so much for opening up your home to everybody. I have had the privilege to work for a very long time and over several administrations in the affordable housing space. And it's pretty clear to me now that it's fair to say that no administration has ever worked harder, been more creative, or done more to save and build affordable housing than this one. And this is a direct reflection of the mayor's commitment to this work and a steadfast commitment to it. And as the mayor said, the numbers themselves are exceptional, and Destiny's story certainly drives home in a very visceral and moving way just what this can mean to individual New Yorkers. But these amazing annual and cumulative numbers also now, I think, demonstrate that we have a new paradigm for affordable housing and how this will impact our city to come for decades. So I'd like to spend just a moment to talk a little bit about how we got here. As the mayor said, this is sort of emblematic of the work that began in the Koch administration. But when that work began and the records we just broke, this was a very different city. Neighborhoods across the city were marred by empty lots. There were many more vacant buildings. Real estate was cheaper, as was construction. And by the way, there were about 1.5 million less people here. Oh, that. So when we got here to really make a dent in the problem of affordability in one of the toughest housing markets in the country, we had to attack the problem from many different angles and employ many different strategies. So what we set out to do, we set out to create housing policies that actually address the changing demographics of the city, to match our housing stock to the people who live here, to the growing number of seniors and singles. We had to revamp our planning processes and land use policies to link infrastructure investments, things like new libraries, new parks, better streets, to the housing that we were building and preserving, to really talk about community development. We had to make it clear to people that through zoning, when we are increasing density, when we are building more housing, it's not if or when there's going to be permanent affordable housing. It's not an if, it's a must. We wanted to make this a cornerstone of our work, that it was about economic diversity. We want to serve the lowest income New Yorkers, but also the cops, the nurses, the teachers, the artists, the people who make this city run and make us who we are as New Yorkers. We wanted to make sure that we were leveraging our tax expenditures, our capital dollars, our public assets more effectively. In plain English, to get more bang for our buck. And we also made very clear that we needed to protect our past investments while we lock in affordability for our changing neighborhoods. And to do that, you have to constantly innovate. We can't just write the plan, put it on the shelf, and keep going. Constantly, new tools, new pushing, whether it's now modular ideas. It's all about innovation. So it is incredibly ambitious. But you need that to meaningfully address the city's housing crisis. And now we're seeing the results. We are keeping people in their houses. We are never giving up a square foot of affordable housing. And we are simultaneously increasing the supply in a meaningful way of permanent new affordable housing. There are real results. We made huge progress in communities like Coney Island, East New York, Far Rockaway, downtown Jamaica, with nearly 1,400 affordable apartments that are going to be built on large public sites that have been vacant and blighted for decades. We have doubled the number of units created under mandatory inclusionary housing to more than 800 in just this year, and produced another 800 units through our new 421A program. This is all to say that we have now got 8,800 apartments in our plan that will be permanently affordable as neighborhoods grow and change. That is a game changer, and we're just beginning. And I think this is also incredibly important. We are serving more New Yorkers who are having the hardest time finding or keeping a unit they can afford. Almost 60% of the apartments that we are building or preserving will be affordable to families that are making, if there are two adults, basically they're making minimum wage. And aren't those the people who we really want to make sure can stay in our city? We raise the minimum wage and we build housing for people who are working who can stay here. So I think that we have a demonstrated and established new blueprint for the preservation and building of housing and thinking about affordability for the long term. It's exactly what we came here to do 4 years ago when we launched the plan. None of this happens without the most extraordinary interagency effort I've certainly ever seen in government. The cooperation amongst the agencies is extraordinary. I do want to obviously thank again Maria Torres Springer and all of her team. Particular shout out to Molly Park, who hasn't slept in about 2 months. But you look great. You look great. Eric's on vacation, well deserved, but also for the folks at EDC and DCP, who also have been extraordinary partners in this effort. So proud and privileged to work with this team. Thank you very much, and what a beautiful day here in the Bronx. Thank you.
Thank you, Alicia. I was very struck last night watching the weather on New York 1. The weatherman said this is going to be one of the 10 most beautiful days of 2018. So happy to share it with all of you. Look at the perfect blue sky. Make sure you get that in your coverage. I mentioned before, the city councils played an absolutely crucial role in furthering so many of these strategies. There's been real partnership and shared vision. So I want you to hear from some of the members of council who have been leaders in this effort, starting with the man who represents this very community. He knows how important this affordable housing is for his constituents, Councilmember Fernando Cabrera.
Yeah, I want to look tall like you. As a matter of fact, Mr. Mayor, you know I'm a pastor, so I talked to God last night about today's weather, so he adjusted.
You did good.
That's pretty good, right?
You have influence.
Indeed. And talk about fresh air. Indeed, this is indeed a breath of fresh air. To see the incredible, epic numbers that are being reported today. So thank you, Mr. Mayor, for making it happen. Because indeed, in my district, District 14, we found ourselves in a desperate situation. New settlement and on the direction of Jack Doyle, who I've been here for many years, could tell you what this neighborhood looked like for many, many years. But we needed the reinforcements that you're providing right now and we're experiencing right here in District 14. 70% of the people that come to my office, I want you to listen to this, 70% of the people that come to my office come with housing issues. And it started with 50% years ago. And the reason why is because the previous administrations, I have to keep it real, were not taking care of the situation that was happening right here in this district. And so this is why I'm so happy with the collaboration of the mayor and the city council and the nonprofits working together to make it happen. Working alongside with my colleague Vanessa Gibson and the rezoning and Deputy Mayor, you were so wonderful. Alongside with all the staff and the administration, we were able to come together, and now we're looking forward to having more affordable housing units. Looking forward to doing more rezonings in the district before I move on. After the next 3 years. And let me just close with this, because blessed are those who give short speeches, because they're going to be invited back. I know we have much more to do, and we can only do this if we work together. So I salute you, Mr. Mayor, for your leadership. Destiny, welcome to our neighborhood. Your name incarnates hope. And the fact that this district is destined to get better. Thank you so much. God bless you.
Well said. Thank you, Councilmember. So, Councilmember mentioned the rezoning process, and obviously very important rezoning happened in the Jerome Avenue area. And I want to thank Councilmember Vanessa Gibson. She bargained hard for the community, but she bargained always in favor of affordable housing, and we got a lot done in that historic action. So my pleasure to introduce Councilmember Vanessa Gibson.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you to our wonderful mayor, Mr. Bill de Blasio. I want to recognize Destiny and her son, and thank you for sharing your story. To my colleagues in government who are here, Councilmember Fernando Cabrera and Councilmember Idanis Rodriguez, to our Deputy Mayor, Alicia Glenn, and to our HPD Commissioner, Maria Torres Springer, and to all of you. This is a beautiful day to be here, and I'm so grateful to represent the borough of the Bronx. Recognizing in today's announcement the fact that we have achieved incredible accomplishments, over 32,000 units of affordable housing created to date. Not only does it solidify this administration's commitment to affordable housing, but it recognizes that affordable housing is the cornerstone by which we do this work. Recognizing that affordable housing for many New Yorkers and many families that are living below the federal poverty level, low and fixed incomes, our seniors, our hardworking New Yorkers. This is about stability. This is about investing in their futures. This is about giving families a roof over their heads, to allow them to feel proud of the neighborhoods they live and work in and raise their families. I'm so honored to be a part of the City Council, to work with this administration, because we recognize the challenges that we face every day, and we stand ready, willing, and able to be about the business of New Yorkers, to recognize that we can be creative and innovative in our approaches. We can preserve thousands of units of housing and create thousands of new housing for so many families that are in desperate need. For many of our communities, we have seen the incredible amount of social services that we have, and many of the shelters and the families that are living in temporary housing. I have always said your housing status should never determine your future. And in our local school district, we have many families that are living in temporary housing. And our children, our families deserve much better. And through this administration and in today's announcement, they are getting exactly what they deserve. And I could not be more proud of the work that has been done in this community, the Mount Eden, beautiful community that I represented in the State Assembly. And now I am a neighbor of Council District 14. But we do this work in partnership. We don't deal with border lines, because this is about the borough of the Bronx. And new settlement housing and settlement housing fund have been an incredible part of this district, of the fabric of our neighborhoods, of giving families the affordable housing they need. I am so proud. For 3 years, Fernando and I worked on the Jerome neighborhood rezoning plan, and it was not easy, but we always recognized the end goal. The end goal was to create affordable housing, to preserve affordable housing, to invest in the amenities that our district needs, like schools and parks and playgrounds and libraries, and we got everything. Over $189 million, because we refused to accept anything less than what we knew our districts needed. And now we get to see the benefit of that here with 1561 Walton and so many other buildings that are in the pipeline to be constructed. And when you look at the work with Housing Connect, with the new legislation that we codified, the certificate of no harassment that will start here in Community Boards 4 and 5, when you look at the universal right to counsel, landmark historic legislation that our mayor supported, where we have lowered evictions in the city of New York by 27%. This means that families are staying in their homes. We have to send a loud message that we refuse to allow any New Yorker to be exploited or harassed by their landlord. And through this new creation of the Anti-Tenant Harassment Unit within HPD, we will do just that. We will not accept anything less, because our families deserve that and much more. I could talk so much about MIH and ZQA and all of the things that we have achieved in this administration. Just since 2014, in Community Boards 4 and 5, we have preserved over 5,500 units of housing. Because I've always said, as much as we invest in new construction, we have to equally invest in housing preservation, so that families are getting access to new upgrades and new elevators and infrastructure. I am proud of where we are, and I'm proud of where we will continue to go, because if we're already breaking records, imagine what we will do over the next 3 years. And I look forward to that work. I look forward to many more announcements and ribbon cuttings, because New Yorkers deserve it. So to Destiny and to many of our tenants that have had a testimony and a story, your powerful story has turned into action, it's turned into plan, and it's also turned into a purpose to make sure that we provide real, affordable, and quality housing for every New Yorker that needs it. So congratulations, Mr. Mayor. Congratulations to this administration on an incredible accomplishment, and congratulations to New Settlement and Settlement Housing Fund for what you have done in our beautiful borough of the Bronx. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks very much. Appreciate it. Well, right now we are involved in a very important effort to create more affordable housing right next door in Manhattan, in Inwood, a major rezoning discussion happening with the community, and of course led by the council member. And he also is pushing for the greatest impact for his community and the greatest impact in terms of affordable housing. So I want to welcome to speak Council Member Idanis Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Como un defensor del pueblo que fue el alcalde Bill de Blasio, antes de ser alcalde, y hablo especialmente para nuestra familia que están aquí, compartimos los valores y objetivos de ser defensores del pueblo en lo que tiene que ver con vivienda asequible. Él luchó antes de ser alcalde para asegurarnos que los landlords que no reparan sean sujetos a la justicia. Él luchó para que se construyeran viviendas asequibles. Y en los años que él tiene como alcalde, él ha estado junto con su equipo cumpliendo esa promesa, asegurándonos de que la ciudad de Nueva York siga siendo una ciudad de compasión para las personas que viven separadas, y nosotros los recibimos aquí y le decimos, le construimos viviendas asequibles para ustedes. Para decirle a la familia trabajadora, ustedes son parte importante de lo que es nuestra ciudad. Nosotros nunca lo vamos a abandonar. Y eso es lo que este plan de vivienda que tiene el alcalde desde aquí al 2026. Un plan de vivienda que tiene el enfoque en la clase trabajadora, en la clase media, para convertir a una ciudad donde mantenga oportunidades, mantenga vivienda, las casas para las familias trabajadoras que han vivido aquí por décadas, y un destino a los que quieran venir. For me, it is an honor, even though I represent Washington Heights, to be here in the Bronx. As a Dominican descent, you know, the Bronx had the largest numbers of Dominican. And Dominican make close to 1 million in the city from the 8.5 million residents that we have in the great city of New York. So, as I said, Mayor de Blasio, before being elected to this important office, he used to be a public advocate. And we share those values. We know that he carried those years of advocating for justice for those tenants that they were pushed out by those few percentage of the bad landlords. He worked so hard to advocate to be affordable housing. And here we are today, working together in the 2026 plan to build affordable housing, going after that goal to continue making our city a city where working class should be lived in dignity, and take to the middle class as many working class children, especially those sitting here with us today, and the child of destiny. There is a threat to the survival of working families all across the nation, but the work starts locally, and that's what we are doing here today. The tens of thousands of affordable housing that will be created during this administration will impact the lives of working class New Yorkers for decades to come. It further shows this administration's and the council's commitment and alignment on creating the most possible affordable units on public and private land, so our families can be safe and our children grow up in a home. I respect my colleagues who have committed to making this city more affordable to the New York families of many generations, many with stories similar to our own. They have led with strength and a clear focus of keeping families in their homes and in their neighborhood. I look forward to continue working with Mayor de Blasio, Alicia Glenn, Maria, and the rest of EDT, the EDC, HPD, and all the agency as we continue conversation in a positive way to also bring a rezoning to Inwood that will be focused on the economic developments around technology, health, and making Inwood a destination for Latino food, as also building affordable housing, especially to working class and middle class. I hope again that as we continue our plan to build affordable housing in any neighborhood, and since mine is going to be the next one, I believe that we need to bring economic development around technology so that we can train the workforce to get a well-paid jobs so that they can be able to continue living in the community. So thank you, Mayor de Blasio. I'm looking forward in the next few days. You have a great team led by EDC, HPD, SBS, and everyone. And I know that as we continue forward conversation and negotiating this big rezoning for Inwood, everyone should know that the focus of that rezoning is to build affordable housing, a large percentage to working class, a large percentage using the local median income of the resident of Northern Manhattan. So it is nice to be here celebrating this beautiful building of the new settlements as we are also moving forward to continue building more affordable housing in Northern Manhattan. Gracias.
Well done, brother. Thank you. As we go into questions, just want to express, because I know a lot of good people are here from our agencies again, to everyone from HDC and EDC and city planning, in addition to everyone from HPD. Really extraordinary team effort, and everyone should celebrate today, and Molly needs to get some sleep. All right, let's go to questions on this announcement, then we'll go to other topics. Yes?
This new anti-tenant or anti-harassment.
Anti-harassment, yep.
Does it require new staff? I mean, this sounds like something HPD should be doing or is doing already. How is it different?
Yeah, it's a great question. So it is an anti-harassment unit. It is pro-tenant anti-harassment. It is building upon a lot of the things that exist already. You know that recently the council made a real priority of creating a unit like this at Department of Buildings, which is now up and running. But when we looked at our efforts at HPD, which have been going on for years, including the newer effort I mentioned with the Attorney General's office and the State Housing Department, everything kept adding to anti-harassment efforts, but we've seen a lot of harassment. You know what's going on with the price of housing, and unfortunately some bad landlords have been motivated to take even more aggressive steps. We realized we needed more. That's the bottom line. We needed more personnel, so yes, there will be additional personnel in this unit. More lawyers, so there will be additional lawyers in this unit, so we could bring civil actions. The criminal actions are extraordinarily powerful, and those will continue. But as I mentioned, by definition, those take serious time and energy to build each case. Civil cases can be done more effectively, or more quickly, at least I should say. We expect to be able to bring 100 or more civil cases a year. Now, I'd love it if we didn't have that many to have to bring, but we're realists. I think there'll be plenty of business for this unit. This unit should be able to do about 1,500 building inspections a year. So really going after the worst cases, but with more firepower, more personnel, more consequence. Yes?
To build on that, will this involve more lawyers for tenants for representation in housing court? Because I know that's something that was expanded a couple years ago.
Yeah. No, that part, that's a great question also. That part has been secured. There's a build-out effort for the lawyers who will represent tenants. That's all about the right to counsel law that the council passed, and I strongly believe in. And those services are going to be available universally for any New Yorker who makes less than $50,000. They will get the full services of a legal aid lawyer. For those who make more than $50,000, they'll still have legal advice and counsel available to them. That is building out right now. Even with what we had done previously, and the last numbers we had, you heard that reference, 27% in evictions as more and more legal support has been available, but that's going to keep growing. This is a different approach. This is lawyers that work on behalf of the government to bring civil cases against landlords who have harassed their tenants illegally, not providing them with the services they deserve, not providing them repairs, or sometimes we've seen making quote-unquote repairs or renovation to force people out, to make life impossible in the building. When we find those illegal situations, we can now bring civil cases directly. We don't need to, we love the work we're doing with the state. We're going to keep doing that. But these civil cases can be brought directly by HPD's lawyers. But they needed more lawyers to do that. So that's part of what this is all about. David?
A couple questions about the housing numbers, but just how many people are going to be in this new unit? Did you say? I didn't hear.
To begin with, how many, Maria? How many to begin with? How many new people in the unit? Look at me. How many new people in the unit? Yeah, in the 10. Begins with 10. That is the lawyers and the inspectors. And again, that's one that if we see additional need, we will keep adding to it.
Okay, so on the housing numbers, I mean, these fiscal year numbers are far above what other fiscal years have shown.
Yep.
Maybe this is more for Commissioner Torres Springer and for the Deputy Mayor, but when I was talking to folks from HPD and HDC earlier this year, there's a lot of concern about the effect of the tax plan on the tax credit market and how you're going to make sure, how you're going to keep pace with what you guys are doing. You're putting more money in already last year. Did you find you had to put in more city subsidy this year to get to this number? I mean, how did the city meet this, not just a goal, but exceed previous goals while facing all these headwinds from Washington?
Great question, and let me start and then pass to Alicia and Maria, either both. So first, I would say we remain very concerned about some of the impact of what happened in Washington with the tax legislation, but remember, that was very recent and the full impact has not yet been felt. I think one of the big X factors here was that the big policy changes are finally starting to be felt. You remember the very dramatic debate and vote for mandatory inclusionary housing. That was a couple of years ago. But to be actually felt in practice, it took this time for us to be able to implement that policy and have it really create affordable housing. You remember the very dramatic debate over 421A. Same thing. When that finally got resolved, I believe, and I want to really thank Alicia for this because she led the way, resolved in favor of much more focus on affordable housing. Now we are yielding the fruit of that. Some of the city-owned sites that previously had not been acted on, that now are being acted on. So there are some X factors here, David, that allowed these numbers to go up. That's not going to be every year. I want to be clear. There's the tax legislation. We're still waiting to see impact. There's the economy, which right now is strong. A different economy might yield different results in terms of the private housing market. But I think one of the reasons we're seeing these new numbers is that a bunch of seeds that got planted finally bore fruit. You want to add?
Yeah, that's exactly right. There are a couple of things. First of all, there was some softening in the markets for tax credit pricing, but not as dramatic as I think many people felt. But also the team did an extraordinary job of making sure that we only added incremental subsidy as much as we needed to. I mean, these guys are driving really hard bargains and pushing our partners very hard, but that did result in, on the new construction side, slightly more per unit subsidy. That is a true statement. But again, we got so many more what we would call free units through these legislative efforts that have taken years to bear fruit, seeing both the mandatory numbers come in, the 421A legislation come in, and actually a surprising number of voluntary inclusionary units. So overall, we're sticking to our average budgets that we have projected, and we're getting more money for our dollars. And we have to keep our eye on the markets. That's absolutely true. Yeah.
Unit subsidy on the construction side, how much more roughly?
I'm going to let Maria give you the exact details. It's a little more, it's not, yeah.
Can I ask, on the MIH,
yeah,
how many units came from mandatory inclusionary in this past fiscal year?
800 in this past fiscal year were starts under MIH.
That's not really explaining this big jump. I mean, you have 8,000 more than last year.
So they're including voluntary inclusionary housing. So there's two numbers. There's the annual number and then the cumulative number. And hopefully the fact sheet is differentiating between those two things. Okay. Maria, do you want to?
So first, just to clarify, mandatory inclusionary, as Alicia mentioned, for the past fiscal year, it's 805 units. To date, it's 1,200 units. And then I think in terms of the budget, we use different programs, right, both on new construction and for preservation. And so what we're finding for new construction, because both in terms of the increase in construction prices across the city, the drop in pricing relative to the past few years, and our commitment to reaching deeper levels of affordability. As mentioned, almost 60% are for lower income New Yorkers in terms of the numbers for this year. I think a good statistic to just have as a metric for how we're doing budget-wise in the overall plan that might be helpful to folks is that we have reached, because we're at 109,000 of the 300,000 goals, so we're 37% of the way of our way towards the overall goal. But in terms of city subsidy expended, we're at 26%. So we are on budget, maybe even under budget, but we will continue to drive a hard bargain. I did want to mention that right behind us, especially for members of the community who are here, this is our outreach van. It has been traveling to different communities across the city, partnering with council members across the city. When we do the events, they provide information how to apply for affordable housing for tenants, for owners, what it means to correct your violations, avail yourselves of our programs. And so it will continue to travel because our work is to take government and our services to the people and to communities.
The question was, what was the per unit increase?
Thank you.
No. No, great. Terrific. Terrific.
Sorry, I thought the deputy mayor had you come up there to answer the question of what was the per unit subsidy increase in the construction.
We'll get back to you on that. There is an increase, but it's for good reasons. As I mentioned, increase in construction costs, the drop in pricing, and very importantly, especially with the new construction units, being able to reach to build deeply affordable units for the people.
Percent of the budget. That's the 80 billion number.
No, that's the 16.5 billion that is city subsidy, city capital, HEC reserves, reservoir.
Specific question and then broad question. Specific question, is Starrett City counted in these numbers? Yes.
Yes, because a major city tax exemption was provided to keep it affordable for the long haul.
Question, does this 300,000 number, do you think of this when you say a paradigm shift of being able to actually bring down market rents in some way, or are we talking about better chances of winning the lotto?
Well, I'll start, and I'll let the experts speak. I'll give the layman's answer. I think it's better chances of winning the lottery and just using sheer volume. I mean, look, I don't know, and it'd be a very interesting thing to get the exact numbers on. I don't know what exact percentage of the 8.6 million people right now in this city have no affordable housing need or do not anticipate an affordable housing need. I think there's obviously millions of New Yorkers who are really stressed and struggling to make ends meet. Thank God we have rent regulation, which reaches well over 2 million people. Thank God we have public housing, which reaches 400,000 people. But suffice it to say, there's a vast need. And when you put into play enough affordable housing for 750,000 people, so getting close to 1 in 10 New Yorkers, by definition, that's changing the equation. I think what this today epitomizes is you have to fire on all cylinders. In other words, you have to continue to stop the evictions and to reduce the rate of loss of affordable housing. And those numbers actually have been pretty promising lately from where things were about a decade ago when a lot of affordable housing was being lost. We've tightened up, particularly with the legal services. Big question is next year in Albany. If rent regulation is strengthened, it is one of the most important things we can do to protect affordability in New York City. If it's not, we'll be losing a golden opportunity. So I'm going to be working very hard on that. But anyway, to bring it all together, my answer is if you can provide new affordable housing, meaning it was not guaranteed before, now it's guaranteed, for 750,000 people, on top of rent regulation, on top of anti-eviction efforts, on top of public housing, we can keep this a city for everyone. As to whether it has a market impact, let the experts speak.
I'll be really brief. Yes, it's a paradigm shift in a bunch of different ways. Number one, we have embraced smart growth strategies, which are also designed to overall increase the supply of housing, particularly rental housing, right? In the city of renters, we need to continue to build for the people who are here and the people who we want to have come to the city and stay here. But we've changed the paradigm as to what that looks like, right? So this is administration proof, I like to call it. Something like mandatory inclusionary housing will now be a permanent part of what housing development looks like in vast majority of new neighborhood development and large-scale development. And that's really a paying it forward, right? So that there's always going to be affordable housing in large-scale development and neighborhood rezonings. The fact that we're now building more rental housing in general is also, yes, having a slight impact on market rents, which in many ways is a good thing, because even if you're not eligible for affordable housing, you're often rent burdened, right? 55% of New Yorkers are rent burdened. So
impact as in bringing them down?
Yeah, so you're seeing a little softening at the top of the market. You guys report on the data all the time, and that's a fine thing. Landlords' margins are still fine, trust me.
It's related to the...
Yes, I think absolutely, because with 421A back, that is a program that is designed to encourage the production of market rate and affordable housing. And there is, it is good to see that much supply coming onto the market because, as I said, many New Yorkers who are not eligible for affordable housing are often and also deeply rent burdened. And we need to bring down the cost of housing to have a healthy economy and a healthy workforce.
I want to hold on a second. I want to make sure that you guys are not talking past each other for everyone's benefit. You're saying, I think, that the market housing
is also
being created is what's having a little bit of an impact on bringing down rents, among other factors. I think the question originally was, is the affordable housing also, per se, is the...
You think the increased supply of affordable housing over... No, I don't think that's true. We need it all.
Okay. Yes, you're off.
Just wondering the cost of the anti-harassment tenants unit.
What's the exact cost? $1 million a year? $1 million a year. Okay. On this announcement, Aaron.
If I understand correctly, this building is one that has a 50% community preference. And I was just wondering, I mean, on the one hand, of course, that allows folks like the woman we met today to stay in the neighborhood. But on the other hand, you have this lawsuit pending saying that it's exacerbating segregation. And you've spoken frequently about school segregation and said that that all goes back to housing segregation. I wonder if you can weigh in on that issue. Do you think there's any validity to the concern that these community preferences are exacerbating segregation? If you think there's anything to be done within your housing policy that can combat that, both at the housing level and then by connection to school?
Right. So there's a litigation going on, so I'm just going to speak very broadly. I think our current approach, which predates us, and this is the policy that was here when we came in, but I think it's a balanced approach. And I think it achieves multiple important goals at once. So I think this is the best way to achieve all the things that we're trying to in terms of serving the people of the city. Okay, on this, yes.
Anti-harassment unit tenants should be calling 311 to connect with this?
Yes, 311, and that it will be. I just want to check, when do we expect that to be? But when can they start calling 311? So different from fully operational. Can we get back today on that? Okay, Eric, too. Because it's building out over the next few months. Obviously, we're hiring people and all. But even if it's not yet fully operational, still could receive those calls and act on them. Come over here. Come over.
The unit will be fully operational by the end of the year, but if tenants are experiencing harassment or problems with building conditions, they can and should always call 311, and we will use every tool that we have at HPD and work with our sister agencies to help.
So I want to pull that together. Anyone, in terms of your reporting, anyone who's experiencing harassment should call right now. And we have been able to address it in a variety of ways. What we think this is going to do is allow us to address it more deeply and with more consequence for bad landlords. But definitely people should call now. We see if anyone who has not gotten a question wants to do on this topic. Okay, David.
A couple quick questions. What is the total city subsidy, direct subsidy for the past fiscal year for this plan?
Come on over. Who's got it? Fiscal 18.
For fiscal
Wait. Can I clarify? What are you saying? For the new unit? Or for the 32,000 for fiscal 18?
That's right. It is 1.6 about 1.6 billion. That is direct city subsidy. It is for this fiscal year approximately 1.6 billion as well.
For 18.
For 18, that's right. Both 18. Those are both fiscal year 18 numbers.
Deal, is that all 5,800 or so units are counted towards in this plan?
That's correct.
Last question for the deputy mayor. Your speech sort of seemed valedictory. Are you planning on leaving the administration?
Why are we speaking?
You know,
I'm always lecturing you.
that's a flight of fancy right there. It didn't seem valedictory to me at all. It seemed like,
to understand how it works.
yeah, she is doing great, and we look forward to a long time ahead together in triumph. On this announcement, anything else? Yes.
Just what is the process for applying for an apartment in a building like this?
Aha! Let's go over that. Well, if you don't have this beautiful van drive up to you, what would you do?
That's right. So nyc.gov/housing has all of the resources, including a link to Housing Connect. Housing Connect is our marketing lottery system. We have tried very hard to make it as streamlined and as easy as possible. You fill out a profile, the types of units that are homes that are available to you, you apply for, and we work with not-for-profit organizations across the city to make that process as streamlined and easy as possible. But nyc.gov/housing, and for anyone in the neighborhood, please drop by the van.
Go ahead.
Who are the best candidates? Who qualifies for?
So the homes that are available are available to people of different incomes. And so for every, like if this building, once the marketing is up, it's very clear the income bands for which you can qualify. And as I mentioned, we'll work, there's a lot of hand-holding to make sure that people are filling out the applications properly, that you know if you are eligible, and we'll walk you through the process.
Okay, on this topic, yes.
The income bands for this particular building.
Okay, come on over.
This particular building is fully leased.
But what were they?
Oh, understood. They just give me 1 second, and I will get that to you.
While Maria's looking for it, I'm going to make her translate into English. So she'll do AMIs, but we're going to talk about family income for a family of three.
That's right. Family incomes for a family of three. The homes in the new apartment, in the new building, are affordable to families who have an income of $28,000 to $85,000. That's a family of three.
Yes.
Mayor, can you tell us about the affordable houses in Inwood, and the process, the zoning process in Inwood?
The Inwood rezoning process? Yes. So, I'll be very broad because it's still going on, and the council member obviously is deep in discussion with us and with the community. But I think there's been a lot of shared vision that we have to create a substantial amount of affordable housing. One of the things that Idanis Rodriguez has said to me for years is that in the previous administration there was very little affordable housing created in Washington Heights and Inwood. And it's an area that has faced really profound pressures in terms of rising rents. And so it's imperative in the rezoning to make sure we achieve substantial affordable housing. But also, there are a lot of unmet community needs that the rezoning will allow us to address. It's a chance. I always say a rezoning is effectively a once-in-a-generation opportunity to take stock of the needs of a community and address a lot of them simultaneously with serious investment. So that's what we're trying to achieve. Okay, last call on this announcement. Yes? When did this building open?
End of 2017, it started leasing up. So, and it over the course of the last several months, it's been fully leased.
Okay, let's go to other topics. Yes. Yes.
Okay. What do you think changed the NYPD's decision to immediately start disciplinary actions in the Eric Garner case against the officer? Because just a few days ago, the NYPD said they were going to wait until September.
Yeah, I am perplexed by the approach of the Department of Justice, and I think this is the answer to your question. I don't know why it's taken them 4 years to make a decision up or down. Repeatedly, we got the message, by the way, in the previous presidential administration and this one, to hold off because they were anticipating a potential prosecution. That message obviously has changed now. And I was surprised by the DOJ spokesperson's statement the other day. I asked the commissioner to have it confirmed, not just with all due respect to spokespeople, but through a senior DOJ official. It was confirmed late yesterday or early this morning. And we obviously, since they're saying it no longer, in their view, has a bearing on their actions, we will now proceed with the disciplinary actions immediately. There's no reason to wait anymore. But I think this is causing me, at least, and I'm going to have this conversation with the law department and NYPD, we're going to have to rethink our approach going forward. God forbid we have another situation like this. I hope we don't. But if DOJ can't work on coherent timelines, then we're going to have to think differently about the whole situation. Yeah.
When you say rethink differently about the whole situation, what do you mean? Will you just disregard?
Meaning, again, what I would like to believe is we will never have another incident like this. I want to be very clear. That is our goal in everything we do, to never have to have a tragedy like this for everyone involved again. But, you know, I've been in this job for 4.5 years, and in the beginning, I think there was a real sense of sort of a solidity when we dealt with prosecutors, not just DOJ, but the Attorney General and district attorneys, that there was a real sense of having to move quickly. And when they said explicitly in any one of these cases, at any level of government, please defer to us, we have the ability to prosecute, and that is the highest call, that made sense. And I think if you look at the Attorney General, with the power the Attorney General has now in certain police-involved shootings, those prosecutions have been timely and efficient. And you look at district attorneys, I think that's generally been true as well. But here's a Department of Justice that was the gold standard for, you know, generations, and it's taken them 4 years, and even at this hour, they have not made a decision. I want to really emphasize that to my fellow New Yorkers. They haven't made a decision either way. And I don't know how on earth that's possible, since they've obviously done all the investigation they ever needed to do. So this is a new reality we're going to have to take into account going forward.
What punishment do you think is appropriate for these officers?
I don't pass judgment in that fashion. There's due process. I honor due process. There will be a trial, and you know that ultimately I want to respect that process and let it play out. Yes.
There were at least 5 officers on tape, on the Garner tape, either not intervening or using force. There's been reports of omissions of facts in the reporting, in the NYPD reporting afterwards. Will there be? There's only 2 people right now facing disciplinary inquiries. Are the others that were involved that day going to be facing any kind of inquiry?
First, I would ask you to, on any specifics, talk to NYPD. My understanding is that after all of the process they have undertaken over these last 4 years, that only the 2 officers now will be subject to the disciplinary action. But for the reasons and the specifics, you have to talk to NYPD. I want to remind you that the wild card of the Justice Department continues in this case. The deciding not to decide reality means, and they've said it very explicitly again in the last 24 hours to us, that they are reserving their right to act, and they do not believe that whatever the NYPD does has any bearing at this point, meaning it does not affect their actions or their decision. So in terms of who might be potentially prosecuted, how many people, how, that still is a live question in terms of DOJ. But for NYPD, I think the situation is fixed now.
Two questions on the same issue. The first is you said that you confirmed with high-level DOJ people that there was kind of this message in spring that the NYPD...
No, not in the spring. The last 24 hours. In all of my dealings with our lawyers from the Law Department and NYPD, what I heard consistently was we were not getting an all-clear signal from DOJ. When the spokesperson said it the other day, that was the first time I had ever heard it, meaning earlier this week. I asked the commissioner to go back and get formal confirmation because bluntly, again, notwithstanding excellent public servants like Eric Phillips, something of this sensitivity, we did not want to hear it from a spokesperson. We wanted to hear it from a ranking official of DOJ. That was done in the last 24 hours. It was specifically confirmed. That makes abundantly clear to all of us it's time to move the process forward.
You still haven't confirmed whether that message was delivered in the spring.
It certainly wasn't delivered to me, and I don't have any evidence it was delivered, but it's a little moot at this point. We're talking something that's now ready to move right away, and it will move.
Second point, I just want to get a better understanding of the relationship between the DOJ and the NYPD. When they make these requests, I guess, how would you categorize it? Is it kind of a courtesy request that's made to the NYPD? Is there any kind of administrative reason why you have to?
Yeah. It's again, I'm not a lawyer, but I'll do my best. I think it's a very fair question. So we've seen it so consistently. You know, coming into this work, not a lawyer, not with a law enforcement background, I watched the pattern across all these different agencies: Attorney General of the state, Department of Justice, whether it's the Justice Department of Washington or the U.S. Attorney's Office, the different DAs, and we've had situations now involving several different DAs. Very consistent pattern. The first request is do not take any action at the agency level that might interfere with a prosecution or might air evidence in such a fashion as to affect a prosecution. That's been very, very consistent. Now, even very narrow questions like body camera footage, a couple of incidents in the last 6 months or so where body camera footage was released by the NYPD after consultation with the district attorneys in each case to confirm that they had no objection to the release and did not think it would adversely affect their activities. I think that's a perfectly sane approach. It's not a courtesy matter, it's a jurisdictional matter. It's respecting that we don't prosecute for crimes through the NYPD. What NYPD does is essentially an occupational process, determining if there's going to be any penalties in terms of someone's employment. The criminal prosecutions are at a much, much higher level. So we're deferring to that. But my point in that is, up until now, up until this case, there was a pretty consistent pattern. A lot of communication, very clear lines. When it was no longer necessary to hold back, we got that clear message, we moved forward. This one has drifted and drifted and drifted. And I didn't understand it in the previous presidential administration, and I didn't understand it in this one. Maybe you could argue in the first months they were getting their feet wet, but it's been a year and a half. So again, this to me says we may be in a new circumstance that we're going to have to reevaluate, but it's been very consistent previously. Go ahead, Rich.
Mr. Mayor, now that there is a green light from the DOJ, are you relieved that this process is going forward?
I think every New Yorker is relieved that we can finally try and get some closure here. I mean, this was a horrible tragedy that everyone felt in this city, and no one felt it more than the Garner family. And this has not been speedy justice. And again, if you want a bipartisan statement, you know, we had two presidential administrations that were polar opposites, but neither one of them could manage to make a decision. So this has not been a good and fair situation. I think to finally have action on the one piece we can control will bring a small measure of closure here. Okay, other question? Yeah.
You said that at a town hall last month that you'd be in favor of having the city review many of the zoning loopholes that developers can exploit to increase the height and density of their buildings. I'm wondering, with all of the rezoning projects moving forward right now in the city, do you find that there's more urgency to do that?
Well, I think, first of all, my view of the rezonings during this administration, different than previous administrations, is, and I want to give this team here a lot of credit, and the council too, there's been a unity about holding developers to their obligations and putting real teeth into any zoning agreement and having consequences if they don't live up to their obligations. That's certainly what MIH is all about, but I think an atmosphere has been created where we drive a hard bargain and then there's going to be real consequences if a developer doesn't live up to it. That's the central fact. That's the most important piece of the equation. To the question of loopholes, I think there are some outstanding issues that need to be examined, and city planning is doing that right now. And at that town hall meeting, if I remember correctly, city planning said by the end of this year, they think they will have done a full review and they would have identified if there's anything that needs additional action. Yes?
Do you have any update on the steam explosion, and is there a reason why you didn't go to the scene?
Yeah, I have an update to the second question. This incident happened very quickly, and then all the information I got from my team, led by our Deputy Mayor for Operations, Laura Anglin, who has been up at the site, and of course our Fire Commissioner, Dan Nigro's up there, is that the incident was over quickly, the area was secured, the evacuations took place quickly, and there was no threat of any further explosion or any further incident. And thank God there were no, at least as we've heard at this point, no major injuries, although we've put out a very clear message to people who may have been affected by any of the debris or material in the air to have that checked right away. So I think considering the incident was over and there were no major injuries, that's a situation where I don't always go, obviously. I go when something is ongoing or when there has been a more serious impact. But that's the status update. The situation's under control. The evacuations happened. There are some environmental concerns that are being looked at. We don't have full answers on that. Eric will let you know as soon as we know more. Health departments involved, DEP's involved. We don't take that lightly. But in terms of immediate impact, no serious injuries, thank God. Yeah.
Do we have more information on the cause of the explosion?
I don't, and we expect to have that in the course of the day.
I just want to go back to the jurisdictional issue with the DOJ, because you said that's been very consistent. Advocates are pointing to cases in a wide number of other cities where the cities immediately terminate a police officer. And the other issue is, you know, after 4 years, the NYPD did decide, you know what, we're not waiting any longer. Why did it have to reach such a lengthy period of time before the city said we're going to take matters into our own hands?
Two very separate questions. On the question of other cities, that's also a question of other incidents. Some of the incidents that occurred in other cities were exceedingly clear. I think each one has to be looked at in its own individuality, but sometimes there is a situation where there's not a lot of doubt. Other times there's a situation where there's a lot of open questions. But I don't know what their conversations were in other places with prosecutorial offices. I think it's right that we respect the concerns of prosecutors, as it's a central concept, and this is what I've experienced. Again, I have no ability to fully reference what happened elsewhere. In case after case after case, the prosecutors involved asked for special consideration to make sure their cases were not undermined. We have to honor that. That said, I am now holding out a specific example, Department of Justice, that does not conform to the other examples and is going to have to cause us to reconsider our approach if we're dealing with an agency that may not honor the notion of speedy justice. If they can't give us some kind of clear timeline, it begs the question if we need to proceed on our own going forward. But that's going to have to be its own discussion. Wait, let me just finish this. The other part of your question.
Why is a 4-year
mark? Oh, in this case, yeah. Because, look, again, I think where there's a fundamental misunderstanding, I'm asking you guys to shed some light here. The difference between departmental charges and criminal charges. Departmental charges, the highest penalty the department can bring is termination in any case. We all know the difference between that and criminal charges, which can result in years in prison. So when a prosecutor says, don't interfere with our case, we take that seriously. And I think that what happened here was, look, it was well reported there were differences within the Justice Department. So our hope in the previous administration was they would resolve them and come forward with an answer. I think most people were surprised in November of 2016 with the result of the election, and that took away the continuity within the Justice Department, and there was a new cast of characters. And at first, it was not shocking to say, okay, now they have to look at it again and make their decisions. But it has just dragged on to a point that's unacceptable. I think if the new administration had come in a matter of months, made a decision, that would not have been shocking. But there's literally, after numerous conversations, there was not even a timeline for a decision. There was no endpoint. There were no criteria given to us. So enough was enough. That's the bottom line. Okay.
On the night shift issue, we're really sort of an offshoot of that. Considering that NITO is found to have falsely filed certain documents with the federal government, have you considered doing any kind of ordering any kind of audit of other city agencies to make sure that their filing practices and sort of their declarations to the authorities are accurate?
Look, this is one where I'd state the common sense answer. This has not been a problem with other agencies that I know of. I've been at this 4.5 years in this role, but I'm thinking back through my previous roles in public service. I don't remember an instance like this. So if we had any indication of one, of course we would go and do that kind of forensic work. There's also a lot of oversight entities that are constantly looking at these agencies. And to the best of my knowledge, they have not brought up anything like that. Yes.
Two things. One, just hoping you can speak to the lawsuit that was filed yesterday on the sanctuary city issue. What is the city hoping to achieve? I believe there's a $4 million grant that could save. Yep. Has there been material harm to the city from that? And beyond, getting the money, what are you hoping to achieve with this city?
Sure. So, first, yes, of course, there's been material harm. $4 million that we should have gotten already, we haven't gotten, and there's no indication that the federal government intends to give it to us. That $4 million goes to crime fighting. It goes to very tangible work to keep crime down in this city. And we should get that money. This is the leading police department in the country. It has a lot to do. It also does a lot that supports the work of our nation, including our anti-terrorism work. Of course we deserve that money. So the very immediate reason for the lawsuit is to get the money that was given to us consistently before and has been withheld, I think, for political reasons. The second reason for the lawsuit is to challenge the very constitutionality of the law that the current administration in Washington keeps waving in everyone's face as their rationale. We don't believe it's constitutional on its face to force these kind of obligations on a locality. We're in a federal system. One of the things I hope comes out of the Trump experience is that people in this city and this country understand the federal system better. It's not the federal government's place to deny funding to the city in the manner they're doing it, or to any city. And we think it's a violation of the Constitution.
The administration made a decision yesterday to change its previous decision and allow a team from Staten Island to travel to North Carolina. Yeah. I'm wondering if you can speak to why you changed your mind on that, and if these if people are going to be allowed to travel, is there a purpose to retaining this travel ban?
The ban is in place, and it's obviously something a lot of governments around this country are honoring, a lot of nonprofit organizations, a lot of businesses are honoring, because there's still a very unfair law in that state. And look, I think that kind of economic pressure has really had a positive impact in a number of cases, ensuring that more tolerant policies come into place. So I think it's an approach that has been proven to be effective. I think this case, I don't know all the facts, but this one seems to me there was a certain amount of misunderstanding and miscommunication. As I understand it, these kids only qualified recently. There was not an understanding that this problem was going to affect them. And look, it's a bunch of kids who have earned a right to participate. Sometimes we say there's a valid exception. I certainly didn't want to stand in the way of these kids having this opportunity, but I do believe the ban is the right thing to do. Last one.
Now that the Justice Department isn't a problem, are we going to get any public report of what happened that night? And Gwen Carr has called for the release of the names of the other officers involved, but a public understanding of what went down?
I think the trial process is public, and I think that it will certainly achieve that outcome. I don't know, and I'd be happy to ask the NYPD if there's any other information that they plan to come out. But there's going to be a public trial. That's part of due process, and I think that will shed a lot of light. Thank you, everyone.